Absolutely. And now, back to some less reluctant participants coming up. We have a rematch coming up here of a recent fight that we really both enjoyed. Matt Crazy Arms Reed versus Shayan Zarein Dolab.
The Battle of the Landlords.
Self-styled as well. They invited.
Most experienced chess boxer in the world.
Matt Reed, Crazy Arms.
He is a sight to behold.
I'm probably in the top 25% of the chess players in chess boxing.
He's done kung fu, karate, kickboxing, and now chess boxing.
Shayan Zarein Dolab, the king. I'm looking to put him into retirement this time.
Shayan I actually fought about 9 months ago. I felt his chess was better than I expected, and his boxing wasn't as good as I expected.
My boxing has improved dramatically. I could only remember combinations of 2 or 3, whereas now I'm doing 5, 6 combinations, able to put power into it.
I have a ridiculous reach advantage. Mike Tyson used to say that everybody's got a plan until they're hit in the face. Although he's ramping it up, he's got too much of a gap to close.
I'm a very strong chess player, and I'm not going to lie, he did give me a beating in the boxing. I'm a complete different opponent now. He's not fighting the same guy he was fighting.
You're going to see much more crazy arms than lazy arms from me. I do feel that his chess has also come on. I feel I've probably still got the edge there because I've got 20 years of playing week in, week out. You've got nowhere to run. You're very exposed in both chess and boxing. You stick your ego out there, and then you have to live with whatever happens.
Two real stars of the chess boxing firmament there, Matt. Matt Crazy Arms Reed, there's no one more recognizable and associated with the chess boxing scene than this veteran fighter.
The most prolific chess boxer in the world. I mean, an astonishing 17 wins, which is an extraordinary conversion rate anyway, but like, he must always go into these fights brimming with such confidence.
Well, I mean, that 2-meter wingspan is certainly what gives it, but we'll take a look at that again in a minute. Jem, again, let's meet the fighters in flesh.
Thank you, chaps. So coming up now is the aforementioned Battle of the Landlords. First into the ring is the most prolific chess boxer in the world, really. He has taken part in a massive 31 fights, and he has a wingspan of 2 meters. In fact, he has the craziest arms in the entire sport. In the black corner, Matt Crazy Arms Reed. Joining him in the ring, our next chess boxer wants to be known as the King of Persia. He claims his chess boxing specialism is sovereign power. Fitting then that he's also a landlord. And he says, although he doesn't enjoy putting up your rent, he does enjoy the finer things in life it affords him. In the white corner then, all hail Shayan Shah Zarein Dolab. whopping 2 meters tall with a record as long as his arms and an elo of 1,850 in the black corner, weighing at 77 kilograms. All hail Shayan, Shah, Zarein, Dolab! Let's hear it again for the battle of the landlords, Matt Reed and Shayan, Zarein, Dolab.
There was a mention of Shayan's record there, like 2 fights, 2 losses, but actually really doesn't tell the whole story, does it, Chris?
I mean, you can see from his entrance, he brings a lot of confidence to the ring, and he's really, backing himself for this one against Matt Reed, who we saw him against last time. He really played an excellent game, Shayan, when we saw him.
Yes, and he played an excellent game against Roger Baxter last time round as well. So I think he is a very, very good chess boxer. He deserves a better record than that. And I don't think he's necessarily even the underdog today, because his chess is coming on in leaps and bounds. Matt also confided in me that he thinks Shayan might even have the edge over him in the boxing these days. But then Matt, of course, has that natural height advantage, which will be interesting to see.
Can't wait to see that, but also can't wait to see these opening exchanges. Matt Reed, renowned for his eccentric choices.
Yes, eccentric is absolutely right, Chris. I'm very familiar with Matt.
E4, E6.
Yeah, the French defence, slightly less... bishop b5. I don't like bishop b5 at all. So we've spoken before about the idea of tempi, gaining time. What this has allowed is for black to play some useful moves, a6 and b5, and now c4, which threatens the win of a piece, doesn't it, Chris?
It threatens to push the c4 forward one more. Oh, and Shayan's not... Well, he's blocked it. He's blocked it, yes.
Kind of
I
caught
thought
you
for a moment
he was
there.
playing d4. I thought he was playing
thought
d4.
for me he was going to do... Yes.
But actually...
I think this is psychological. This is mind games from Shayan, this.
Yeah, I mean, actually, d5 now, of course, renews the threat as well, because the d5 pawn is covering the c4 square. I don't like this position for white at all. And actually, he's blundered a piece, c4. Surely
Yeah,
c4 is possible. That wins a bishop. It just wins a bishop, doesn't it? Of course, as with the John the Brick Wood versus Geroid Veal game, white might get a little bit of play for it, but a piece is a piece, and he's played it. He's played it. c4, trapping the bishop. It can't take its own pawns. It can't move forward. It can't capture that pawn, because that pawn is defended twice, and it's only attacked twice, and you get rid of one of the attackers with the first exchange. So a really, really important blow for Matt here.
And we would expect to see fewer mistakes in this game. These are two extremely high-class chess players. You would not expect to see, especially someone like Matt Reed, vastly experienced, to be blundering back the material in perhaps the same way we were saying might happen in the previous game.
Having said that, if Shayan can make those inroads in the boxing, take a couple of kind of big steps forward in that regard, then maybe, just maybe, Matt's usual accuracy will diminish a little bit. Now, Matt has now won this piece. He's also exchanged queens, which is great. Black is a little bit down on development. Now, his position is solid enough that this shouldn't be too much of a problem. Also, white does have a pawn for the piece, and if he can sweep up that c4 pawn, the material advantage is not as great as it might be.
This is the threat now. A bishop takes knight, wrecking the pawn structure to boot as well. I do not like Shayan's position here. I think he should slow down a little bit, try and draw this out, and take his chances in the boxing.
Yeah, and I mean, Shayan previously has played a little bit too quickly, and I think, again, it's an experience thing. It's using your time for key moments. Now, I think rook to e1 was a very sensible move. You want to have your rooks on e1 and d1 here. But Matt has already got such a solid position. He's a piece for a pawn up. Shayan has this rotten kingside pawn structure. I think that black has got a big advantage, and I think Matt has played this extremely well.
Yeah, he was taking his time as well just to check there was no trap. You know, it looks like there's an easy win of a piece. You always just want to make sure that you're not overlooking anything. And that's the end of the round. We did not expect to see that, Matt.
No, it was a slightly... I don't know whether Shayan doesn't have a repertoire against the French, but he's looked at the Spanish game against e5, meaning bishop b5 immediately is quite a common plan.
Yeah.
But it's not such a great idea. It provokes a couple of useful moves for black, and actually the unfamiliarity with the resulting structure, the fact that Matt had this c4 push trapping the bishop, that's what kind of did it for Shayan. Since black had a couple of extra tempi, Shayan didn't really get the additional advantages in the position that you might expect, extra piece play.
You called it there. Absolutely right, Matt. He was a victim of that unusual second move that allowed the queenside expansion that eventually trapped that bishop, and you were saying he has to be careful of that from the off. So now we must be looking for the aggression from Shayan in the ring, which is tough against Matt.
Yes.
I've been in the ring against Matt, Shayan has as well. It's getting past that jab. Those crazy arms, he has that moniker for a reason.
But, I mean, the craziness implies randomness. But Matt Reed is a very, very sort of skilled and decent fighter, isn't he? You don't watch him make that many mistakes in the boxing.
He knows his way around a ring as well. If he's in trouble, he can hold on. But also, increasingly as his career has progressed, he's bringing a lot more of the power into his game as well. He used to be more about surviving in boxing and winning on chess. Now I've actually seen him dominate matches of late in the boxing. So this is really a tough ask for Shayan. But if there's one thing he doesn't like, it's confidence, and that's what you need when you're in a situation like this. He looks very focused as well.
And what role does confidence play in boxing, Chris?
I mean, you would want to be tentative while you've got someone coming at you trying to knock your head off, Matt. So I'd say it is vital. You have to back yourself in there. You have to, especially in this situation where you want to be winning on the boxing, you have to back yourself to find that power punch as well. The game changer. The equivalent of a reverse Jaffa in boxing, you could say.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea, this reverse Jaffa. We spoke about forced and unforced errors, didn't we? And I think there must be a pragmatic way to box here, depending on the position. You can box in a way that increases the chance of people making mistakes. Or, I think in Matt's case here, and I speak not as an experienced boxer, you want to box in a way that makes the chess result count. You don't want to take too many risks here, right?
Matt starts as he always does, which is to establish the jab. Shayan landed a good body punch there and manhandled Matt back into the corner. I like that. That's very good from Shayan. He worked Matt, closed the distance. Matt's just now going to look to establish the jab again. Watch this. Watch that left hand. He's going to start firing it out. 1, 2, 3, quite quickly there. Yeah, counter right. See? Yeah, good right hand from Shayan. So he's waiting for Matt to throw the jab and then countering over the top with that right hand.
And Shayan clearly has an appreciation of how things have gone in the chess. He's going about this round in absolutely the right way.
Oh, he lands a good right hook to the head there. He needs to look for that punch again. He needs to wait for Matt to kind of fire out the jab a little bit slowly and counter it with the big right hook.
Push. Up on your toes,
Again, he's caught it with him again.
Some strong energy from the cornermen as well. I'm really enjoying this. This is. Like these guys really know what they're doing. Like they fought before, and you can really feel the energy and the drive here by both guys. I mean, this is the hybrid sport at its finest.
And Shayan has Matt back in that same corner again. Landed a couple of useful right hands, one to the body as well. You can already see Matt's torso starting to red there. You see it there? Landed the jab in that spot as well, and to the head too. Shayan is definitely bringing the fire in this round. Matt, you can see already the reddening around Matt's ribs. If I was Matt, I might be looking to hold on a little bit now, just to slow this one down. There's a bit too much coming his way. That was an excellent round from Shayan there. Really wasn't faced by the height differential. Had to do the quick counter punch there. He was waiting for Matt to lead off with the jab and then right either to the body or to the head. That's an excellent round. He's established a foothold in the fight now. Now he has to try and be careful, take his time in the chess.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice assessment of it. The idea of having a foothold in the fight, and that I don't think the chess has really allowed White to put what one would describe as substantial pressure on Black's position. Black has this pawn on c4, which is ostensibly a weakness because it's a fairly random, isolated c-pawn far down the board, but it's incredibly difficult for White to actually take advantage of it. It is also
how
to
do
a
you
degree.
attack it? Yeah.
Well, exactly, and also Black has the half-open b file, which means he can attack this pawn on b2, and he's got this wrecked kingside pawn structure. I would go so far as to say that Black is just a piece up for nothing, and Shayan really needs to play sensibly here, and to be honest, just not end up in a worse position, so that maybe the boxing can count a bit more.
So he can and should take his time a little bit more than in the first round, because now he knows that he's probably got the advantage in the boxing. So even if he's going to lose on the chess, you want to get as many boxing rounds as you can out of this.
And I think the axiom "don't exchange pieces if you have a better." If you have a worse position, is very apt here, as it was in the John the Brickwood Gerard Veal game. White has willingly exchanged knights when he could have moved it to a little bit of an outpost on e4. Black must be very happy with this. He has the better pieces. He's a whole knight. He's a knight for a pawn up. But to be honest, I think even if White had, say, a knight on g3, I think Black's more or less got compensation for that pawn. And he has an extra piece as well. The knight can come into d3. The rook can harass the pawn on b2. I think that White is in a lot of trouble here.
All the trumps are back. The knight is taken come d3. Yep, and a pair of rooks has come off there. Threatening now.
Oh, don't do
pairs
it.
of rooks to come
Don't
off.
do it, Cheyenne. Don't take the rook, please.
It's the natural reaction, but yeah,
Oh, good man.
Yeah,
Good
there you
man.
go.
Have to do it.
Keep
You
it on the board,
have
preserve
to do
chances.
it. And I like rook b8 a lot. So if the rook comes to e2 now, it's a little bit out the game. And I think Matt can then start manoeuvring his pieces in. The one thing that he has to consider is how he puts additional pressure on Cheyenne's position. I think this is where the outpost on d3 comes in. If we see rook to e2 now, then we've got knight to e5. Oh, hang about. If the rook takes on b2, we've got rook e8 checkmate.
That is a very canny trap there.
What a
from
nice
Shayan.
idea.
And you saw you saw the intense concentration on his face. In a way, he's really zoned in now. I think in a way that he perhaps hadn't in the first round. So Matt was able to sidestep that trap, but it just shows that even in the apparently most benign positions where you have the advantage, there's always a trap that's lurking if you switch off.
Yeah, you can't switch off. You can never switch off. Oh, he's played bishop d6, which looked very sneaky. I like that by Shah, because if the king had moved, then you had rook takes rook checkmate. And actually, Shayan's probably reasonably happy with how the last passage of play has gone. Like, he's sensibly avoided exchanges over the last few moves. And Matt's pieces are slightly less well coordinated. Like, we had the idea of the knight coming into d3, we had the idea of the rook coming to b2, and actually the bishop on e7. Oh, we've had a swap, and I don't like that.
But he keeps the rook on, at least. He keeps the rook on. We're getting to the end of the round. Maybe until that swap, he would have been very happy with how Matt hadn't managed to progress the position towards the win. There's still maybe another couple of rounds of play in this.
Yeah, I think Matt has played the game actually really well. I think the one thing I would say, and it's completely understandable in this position, the fact it's a chess boxing match rather than a chess match. I think Matt has been too keen to exchange. Now, clearly exchanging is the right idea, and he's gone about his job with great industry, but he's primarily playing moves to force exchanges, and Shayan has stopped acquiescing to that plan. So we've had a lot of like rook shuffling, like rook to d7 here. Now Shayan is not going to exchange. If Black moves his rook back to e7 now, if White plays rook e2 and Reed moves his rook back, Shayan is not going to exchange it. Matt actually has to come up with something of his own here. And I think he's got lots and lots of good ideas. I think the pawn is a key weakness. I think the knight has got a great piece on d3. But it's going to still take a little bit of work like that.
Yeah, 95.
When he comes in with that mad overhand.
The knight can maybe go into threatening f3, and then it'll come to that juicy d3 hole, as you say, but about to go back to the boxing, and it'll be intriguing to see if Shayan can again assert himself here. So Matt was blowing a bit at the end of the last boxing round. He's had the chess round to recover. Let's see if he changes his strategy, because he was definitely on the receiving end. And Shayan finds the big right again, and over the top, following it up with a jab. That's 3 landed punches there, scoring from Shayan at the beginning of the round. He's looking for that big haymaker right to put Matt down. Matt standing fairly firm, but not too much coming back himself at the moment. I'd like to see him firing out that jab a bit more, reminding Shayan that he's there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that's really impressed me about Shayan's boxing is the ability to be at a distance from Matt's like crazily long arms and to still land these fantastic punches. Like Shayan's speed is really something to behold. He just kind of nips in and lands a punch before Matt can do anything.
It's about kind of foot speed's a very good point there, Matt, because you're to work his way in quite quickly. I think he's been waiting for Matt as well to fire off, avoid the initial jab and then come in, but he's constantly finding a home for that right hand. Matt really has to do something about that, whether it's be a little bit more mobile, be a bit tighter in defense, or bring a bit more on himself just to dissuade Shayan. Well, there you go. Yep, so Matt getting warned there a little bit for the holding against the canny veteran's trick. Take a little bit of the steam out of it, run the clock down. We're down to about 30 seconds left for this round.
So you're saying, Chris, for the audience at home, you're not allowed to hold for too long, otherwise the referee will intervene. Is that right?
You saw Ronaldo there stepping. Holding is not allowed, although it's really quite common. It's a good way of just eating up a few seconds and having a rest by leaning on your opponent. Shayan looking for that big right. I'd like to maybe see him kind of come with a few more combinations afterwards as well. Maybe a 1-2-3. To follow up that big right-hand bomb with the left hook as well. Show Matt something he's not seen.
Clearly Shayan has had the better of this round, but I think if you're Matt, given where you are with the chess, you're probably reasonably happy with how that went. Like, you can't imagine Matt falling foul of a knockout or a technical knockout in the next round. And surely he's going to be able to persevere in the chess in the next round or two. I also understand that actually it's Matt Reid who has the time advantage in the chess, not Shayan, which adds an interesting extra dimension, because I don't think that necessarily means Shayan can survive another couple of chess rounds without making a big blunder.
Yeah, he's got one, maybe 2 more rounds in it. It's classic Matt Reid. You can see he's, again, sucking in a bit of the air there. He knows he's taken a bit of punishment. This is like back to the early days of Matt Reid, where he'll just wear the blows to the ribs, almost as a badge of honour, knowing that he can clean up on the chessboard. So Matt, as you were saying there, Matt Reid has the time advantage. He has 7 minutes there in his bank, compared to just under 5 minutes for Zarein.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's a game that is going to be lost on time, but I think Shayan would certainly benefit from having a time advantage here, because it's difficult to see. It's kind of you've got this slightly weak pawn on c4. Yeah, it's not okay. King c7. King c7 is a good move here. Now, as with earlier in the game, the c4 pawn is not easy to attack. The only thing that worries me is the lack of purpose in Matt's play. He's been trying far too hard to swap off material.
And now that knight comes in.
So I think that rook e2 is a pragmatic move here. Rook to d4. So just as a reminder here, Matt Reid is actually the one with the time advantage. Matt has 7 minutes and Shayan has 4 minutes and 15. So really, Matt Reid is not only in a better position on the chessboard, but he has the ability to instigate some pressure as well. But what about f4 here, Chris? Is f4 a possibility now?
I mean,
he's played. So he needed to think about it, because rook here is winning a rook. He's winning a rook. He's got knight f3. He's got knight f3. And it's not winning a rook, it's mate. You've got king back to h1 and rook d1 is checkmate. Rook d1 is checkmate. I don't know if Matt will see it. He might just take the rook immediately without thinking. Oh my goodness, what a haymaker. Shayan.
He's played it straight away.
He's done it, and it's checkmate.
Matt Reid.
What an extraordinary end to the game.
Matt Reid
with an immense
executing
at the end.
It happened in a flash. Even in the quietest of positions, a checkmate can come from nowhere.
Matt Reid with a stylish win there. As with the previous game, the weak kingside, which looked like it was going to be a purely positional consideration, actually led to checkmate. But anyway, what about? What an extraordinary fight. Both guys acquitted themselves really, really well. I think Matt Reed did really well to instigate a bit of non-sort of swapping pressure there in that position. But I think we're handing over to Jem. Jem to announce the winner.
The formalities.
So we do have a winner with a stunning checkmate. It's Matt Crazy Arms Reed.
My word.
Matt Reed by checkmate. That is a pattern worth remembering for those who want to work on their chess at home. That checkmate pattern is one that can occur fairly frequently.
It is one that would occur fairly frequently. Although, I mean, in this particular, given that you've got pawns on f3 and f4 and this pawn on h3, and the fact that the rook came to g1 not through capturing a piece via the back rank, but via
the intermediary check.
The rook sortie to g6 and then down to g1. I mean, that was extraordinary. And once again, an instance of I think Shayan's relative lack of experience. He didn't use his time at quite the right moments, even when the position wasn't great. Because I think f4 he played very quickly, and it was a really nice move if it didn't fall foul of checkmate.
Over to Jem.
Matt Crazy Arms Reed, here we are again. Well done on your victory.
Thank you very much.
How's it been during lockdown, kind of staying prepped, staying fit?
Well, I think anybody that saw the boxing realised they didn't stay fit during lockdown.
I didn't want to say.
I was about to say, I'm sure the crowd at home were thinking, why was it so slow when all the other bouts were so quick? But yeah, I don't know, maybe nervous energy today. I know, having done it so many times, you think that there'd be no nerves, but no, literally 5 o'clock today, the nerves kicked in, and I think I burnt through a lot of my energy, and it was all I could do just to keep away from him, because I mean, he's not throwing a huge number of punches, but what he did throw and what he did connect with, there's an awful lot of power. He's got a lot of evil intent going.
Yeah, and his eyes, they're very, evil intent.
The death stare. Yeah, psychologically, I think he won the battle pre-fight.
So how do you keep cool in the chess? We've seen you do this many a time. You just pull those moves out the bag.
I just feel at home in front of a chessboard. I've spent a huge amount of my life in front of one, so it feels like natural habitat, whereas take one look at me, that is not my natural habitat. Inside those four corners, it gets a little bit sort of, you know what you want to do? Like you sort of, your corner's shouting out, come on, jab, jab, right hand. And literally the jab comes out, it comes out slowly, and you don't even feel like throwing another one. At some points, you actually want to take the punches because it hurts less than actually expending the energy on throwing the punches. That sounds bizarre, but it's absolutely true. After a while, the adrenaline's covering an awful lot of the pain of the punches.
Yeah, and people might think looking at you, your reach has got a massive advantage, but that's not your experience, is it?
No, they tend to find a way through it, mainly because it goes out slowly and it comes back slowly, so it's just a question of timing, and these guys have definitely got timing. So, but luckily he didn't hit the real estate up here, so I've been marked here, so I should be good for work on Monday. So Andy, if you're listening, I'll see you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Yeah,
Battle of the Landlords, indeed. Well done again on your victory, Matt. And relish in it, enjoy it.
I'm going to go
we'll
enjoy
see you again soon.
A nice beer now, so that's what I'm looking forward to.
Take
Cheers,
care.
guys.